Welcome to the NSI podcast, where technology, innovation, and strategy come together to empower today's IT leaders. On today's episode, K-12 Tech Talk, we talk about education trends, cybersecurity, and innovation in the classrooms. Hey, well, we have Todd Borland on. He is the Executive Director of Technology at Union Public Schools, which he's been at for 25 years. And we're excited to talk to you today, Todd. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Good. Well, I want to jump right into it with, I've touched on you've been in the tech world for 25 years with K-12. And what initially drove you to this space and what's kept you there for so long?
Complete accident. The company I was working for, my position here, my predecessor actually went to that company. And in the middle of the conversation, he was like, "You'd be a great fit over there. You should go apply." And I was like, "You know what? That's a great resume padding thing for a couple of years. I'll go do that for a year or two and get the network admin on my resume and move on to something else." And 25 years later, I'm still here in the position.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. Well, what's the biggest shift in K-12 technology you've witnessed throughout this time?
Oh,
I know there's been a lot, but
yeah, when we started, there was no technology, so quite a bit. We got electricity now. I think some of the changes we've seen. There's a simple and easy ones: the interactive whiteboards everywhere, the wireless throughout, the laptops in kids' hands. I think those are pretty much, it's everywhere. Everybody has those same things. But for us, I think what we've seen the majority of the biggest change is the way students deal with technology and the way students deal with learning. The immediacy and the lack of waiting to develop skills is something that we've seen change almost immediately in the last 2-3 years. Has been something we've kind of struggled with. But in the old days, you'd be able to give lessons, and the attention span was, minute and a half, minute 45 seconds. Now you're down to less than 45 seconds, 30 seconds to keep kids' attention. So I think for us, the biggest change isn't necessarily technology; it's how we deal and interact with technology.
Right. Go ahead.
Yeah. Now, I had a quick question on that. It sounded like what you're seeing is the students' attention spans are decreasing, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything you think that's leading to some of that?
Well, I think social media and mobile devices are part of that. Students expect immediate responses when they ask a teacher a question. They expect immediacy, like a text message. It doesn't quite work that way. So I think social media, mobile laptops, phones, a lot of that I think is really, the shorts on the TikToks or all the other different things they use now. It's all about driving that immediate response, immediate thing, and move on to the next thing as quick as you can. And they think, and part of that is that's where the kids are in the education world. We need to address this. We need to look at that and say, that's what kids are learning about. Sitting them down for 45 minutes and going over one topic isn't where they are anymore. So we need to look at how do we change our instructional methods to embrace that? How do we change that? How do we go through and say, let's create smaller chunks of instruction, deliver that, assess the kids, formative and summative, but then break up how we're doing this, which is really easy to say and very difficult to do in reality, because you're talking about changing classes and hallways and what all that looks like. So it's
right.
Real easy for the IT guy in his office to talk about, but a little more difficult in the building to change.
Yeah, that would be a whole paradigm shift in the way we're doing education, right? It's a lot to think through. It's pretty interesting. Well, me, I work for a cybersecurity firm, and we've been doing it for a long, long time, and we've seen cybersecurity kind of evolve over the past 2 decades. I'd like to see, especially from your side of the house, How has your cybersecurity strategy evolved, especially with the rise of remote work and cloud adoption, especially in particular in the K-12 realm?
Yeah, I'd say our focus, when we first started, our focus was how do we create that perimeter to keep the bad guys out?
Right.
How do we create the safe network and keep, firewall? It's all about firewall. And then we realized that we have 15,000 little kids that if they don't come into our network, we suspend them for skipping school. So our firewall is good for some of it, but not all of it, because we bring them in and they get horizontally on our network. So from a cybersecurity perspective, we spend a lot of time of what does that look like? How do we isolate, segment out those kids? How do we take that? How do we take those kids and allow them to do what they need to do? But at the same time, how do we limit the impact they can have on the network? But I think for us, our biggest cybersecurity is data privacy. 15, 20 years ago, I don't know if we thought about data privacy from a staff perspective as well as student. It was just kind of there. So I think we've really been intentional in the last decade to really go through of how do we secure our kids' data? How do we secure not only how are we transmitting the data, but these vendors that get our data, how do we ensure they're doing what they're supposed to do to secure and keep that data safe from our kids? And so our parents have some type of comfort that we are protecting their data.
So have you ever had, and of course, keep names and things anonymous, but have you ever had a student cause a cyber incident?
This week?
Fair enough, right?
Yeah, of course we have. We've had, again, depends how you define a cyber incident. We've been pretty fortunate. We've never had any real denial of service attacks initiated by a kid or anything along those lines. But we've had kids make bad choices online that have caused legal consequences for them, which we prefer they not do because that's not much fun to deal with. So we've had those issues. We've had those issues, not a lot, probably in my 25 years, maybe a handful of times. But we have kids that will try to download stuff and think it's fun to bring it on site. But I would say a vast majority is not intentionally trying to hurt the network. They are just not really caring or paying attention. And this is a new version of World of Warcraft. I can download this version. I don't really care that it came from some off-market brand and it's injected full of Trojans or whatever. So they unintentionally do it. But we've also spent a lot of money, a lot of time in the last, decade of really segmenting off that network. So when they do cause problems, it doesn't spread. We can kind of isolate it. We can kind of control it in a little more environment. We don't allow them to get on our network. It's all wireless. We use Aruba. So everything we do, on the wireless, we try to segment them off into their own traffic so they're not spreading amongst each other. So we've taken a lot more steps and we spent a lot more money than we have, in the past to try to help mitigate that as much as we can.
Excuse me.
One of the things we talked about with one of the other guests was flipper zeros. Go ahead, Cassie.
I didn't know if y'all were hearing any feedback. Are y'all good?
Are you guys hearing? Can you hear feedback on me?
No, I think it might be me. I've got a laptop. I don't know how well it's working.
Okay. I'll cut that part out.
That's all right. We can cut. Cassie, why don't we just go with you? We can cut that flipper zero conversation to a later date. So.
Okay. All right. Todd, what is the biggest obstacle you face when implementing new technology in K-12?
The fear of change. I think, again, nothing we do is unique to that. We're the only district that has this problem. I have a feeling this is probably pretty consistent in a lot of organizations. But I would say the fear of change that we're going to do something different. It's going to be cause somebody to not know what to do. I think one of the challenges, I would not like to be in front of 30 kids trying to teach something and not know how something works. And have 30 kids looking at you to be the sage on the stage, and you have no idea this new technology that we implemented last week even works. So we're very aware that when we do these things, we really need to put ourselves in the teacher's shoes, what that looks like, what we're really asking them to do, and how that's going to impact their instruction. One of the things that we're very cognizant on is if what we're going to implement doesn't improve the instructional process, we need to really consider whether or not it makes sense to do that. There's a lot of cool stuff I want to do, I would love to do, but it would slow down or hamper the instructional process. So we know that some things we have to compromise, that we're not going to be as secure and stable or as efficient as we thought we were going to be. But we just have to live with that. The way teachers deliver the instruction, that is a lot more important than us having a secure network at sometimes.
Right. Well, how has your leadership style evolved over the years in such a fast-changing tech landscape?
I'd say the biggest thing I had to do was learn to give up a little bit of control. So I was a little different in my role. I started pretty much entry level over here. So I was the network PC coordinator. So I had a staff of, at the time, at the district level, like 3. So I was doing all the network. I was doing all the firewall. I did all the wireless. We created imaging. So I was kind of responsible, and I did all that. And as the department kind of grew and morphed, and we brought people in and moved them around, it's really hard for me to give up. Some things I gave up gladly, pretty excited about giving up. But some of the things I really held tight, like the network, that was really hard for me to give up. So I think over the years, I've learned to hire good, trust good, and then relax. That I think that the idea of micromanaging every aspect of your job, you can't do that, and have any type of work-life balance. So being able to give up some control is a big skill that takes a long time to learn.
I think that brings us to our next question, doesn't it, Rich?
Yeah, well, I was going to pick on him and see if he actually takes time to relax now, but I'm not sure.
Do.
Do you?
I love woodworking.
Well, there you go. Who doesn't like woodworking?
I know. I'd question them if they didn't.
What is your specialty in woodwork?
Oh, I don't have a specialty.
Just all of it.
I just like to do stuff with wood. Okay. Tabletops and desks and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I do a little bit myself. I just it's hard to find the time nowadays, right? To sit and do that. Yeah, especially for me, I've got a lot of kids. I've got grandkids now, and it's just which, don't get me wrong, love my kids, love my grandkids, but they love time. So,
yeah. I don't have any grandkids, so I blame my kids for that. So,
Todd, you're just going to have to catch up. It's what you're going to have to do. So,
yeah. Not my issue. It's on their side.
Someone else, yeah. Well, so one of the questions I was curious about, how do you build and maintain strong tech teams in the public sector, when the private sector has these great salaries and they can kind of outcompete when it comes to resume building and pay and things like that? It's tough. It's got to be tough, especially in Tulsa.
Yeah, talk about probably one of our biggest challenges. And to be honest, and I'm partially to blame for that, because I have a hard time going to the superintendent into cabinet and say, hey, I need more money for techs. I need to increase their salary. I need to increase positions. Because every time I do that, I know I'm impacting the classroom. That's one less teacher we're going to be able to hire, which means it's higher class sizes. So instead of a teacher teaching 24 kids, she's teaching 26. That's hard for me to say, yes, that makes a lot of sense. in my 25 years, I have the same size staff I had when I started. So we've never asked for a position. I say that actually last week was the very first time I ever asked for a position. Got told no, but we asked for it. But our staff's the same size. So we haven't grown and we haven't changed. And to be honest, we're very cyclical. So in August and September, we can't have enough people. I could have twice the number of people and we'd still be not enough people. Around this time of the year, around March, we're not as busy as we could be. So it's hard for me to say I need to overstaff, then in the spring they sit and do nothing. But for us, I think, we've got a lot of longevity. I've got employees that have been here 20 years, 25 years. I've got one handful of guys that have been here for well over 2 decades. And I'd say a majority of my staff have been over a decade now. So for us, we're very aware that we're never going to compete on salary. But we also know money is not the driving factor for everybody. Right. So for us, we try to literally, our focus is how do we create the best environment for them to come to work every day. We've numerous times we'll say your family's first. If you have a sick kid, a sick wife, whatever it is, you take care of that first. Your vacation leave that you've earned, I expect all my employees to take it every year. I don't expect them or want them to lose any days. We value their time, their personal time. I can, again, on my time here, I can probably count on my hands the number of times I've called somebody in to say, go into work and get something done. For us, we're very aware that we're a school system, that majority of our problems, kids will still learn tomorrow. So we don't necessarily have to call people in. We don't have to work 24 hours a day. We're very accommodating to any needs they have. So it's those soft skills, that soft benefits that you don't really see and you can't really put a dollar amount to it. But I think those add up. And we also have very, very, very friendly leave. We're off a lot during Christmas. We're the entire week of Thanksgiving, the week of 4th of July. We have paid medical insurance for free for employees.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah, so there's a few things where we look through and it really becomes a selling point for us. And our salaries are becoming more competitive. And one of the things is for us as a bad economy is always great for us because whenever other companies are laying off, our candidate pool seems to get better quality candidates when there's a rougher economy. So a little inverse relationship for us as far as the economy goes, but kind of is what it is.
Does the state of Oklahoma, I work with a lot of folks in a lot of different states, and I know some states offer a pretty competitive retirement package. Mm-hmm. Is that one of the perks for the state of Oklahoma? Do they do a pretty good retirement package? Is that something?
As compared to other states, probably not as well as the other states. If you're talking about a teacher, I think Texas is 2.5 times the year of service. We're just at 2 times. So however many years of service, 2 times. So if you work 35 years, 2 times is 70. So you get 70% of your highest salary.
Gotcha.
That's your retirement benefit, but it's also for life. So it's not like a 401k of you spend too much, you lose it. It's here's your money, and every month you get the same check. So once you're in the system, it's a really nice system. I'd imagine that there's not going to be many private businesses that go back into the pension area. So it's a nice benefit if you can put the time in and make that commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had quite a few friends who are like, CIO at some other states. And, that's a huge selling point for them when they're getting people in. They're like, hey, if you can stick it out and you can stay in and serve the state, it's a great retirement package.
Yeah, they changed it a few years ago. It's 5 years to get vested. So if you can just put 5 years in, you're vested, you're in the system. So if you could think, of course, for us, it's a point system. You have to have 90 points. It's age plus years experience. So if you only work 5 years, you have to wait a while before you get 90, before you can pull the money out or transfer it somewhere else.
Right.
But if you put in the time and you retire, like I said, it's a great benefit. It's when you get old like me, it's one of those things that kind of keep you around. Private industry always calls, and there's times it's compelling when you're looking like, wow, private industry pays how much?
Yeah.
So it's definitely something compelling, but at the same time, you look at it, you're like, 6 years, I'm retiring. I don't care how much you pay. It's not worth it.
Right.
Well, do you have a retirement date in mind?
I don't really know for sure, but I'm pretty sure it's December 11th, 2032. Give or take.
You got a little while. That's good.
Mark that date.
Uh-huh.
Roughly. I mean, I'm not counting or anything.
Okay. What's one decision you made early in your career that shaped your path?
Well, I mean, I think the earliest one obviously was not leaving union.
Right.
After a year or two, I had a couple offers on the private sector that was substantially more money, especially back then, than I made here, and it was compelling. I'm not really. I'm a little more risk aversion type of man. I don't like a lot of gambles. So staying somewhere where I was stable made a lot of sense. So I think that was one of the bigger decisions. But I think probably for me professionally and personally was to go back and finish my degree. When I started, I actually had a high school diploma. As working and I worked hard. And our superintendent at the time promoted me to administrator, and she told me that she had never hired an administrator with a high school diploma, and that she's not going to have an administrator with a high school diploma. Noted. So I had left OU and had 9 hours to graduate, and I started traveling with my other company, and I couldn't go back to school. And by the time I went back, it went to like 32 hours. And long story, but finally I finished my degree, got my master's, and I went back and finished my doctorate coursework.
Oh.
Not the dissertation, just the coursework.
Just the coursework. Okay. Well, that's cool. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
See, learn something new every day.
I had a desire for a short minute to be a superintendent. And then I got on
You definitely would need your doctorate for that. So
yeah, I got on a cabinet. I saw what they did, and I was like, for how much more money? Yeah. No, thank you.
I was watching a comedian. Those are the type of positions where, and he was just joking about the president. He's like, but they wake you up every morning. They're like, problems.
Yeah.
And by the way, more problems. Superintendent is probably like that same type of job where it's just like, hey, by the way, boss, we have some problems.
Yeah. They don't wake you up and say, hey, every kid got to school today.
Man, it was great.
That's not the call you're getting. When your phone rings, it's somebody has an issue somewhere.
Exactly. Well, I want to shift gears a little bit. And, if I'm not mistaken, you guys have a pretty good esports program. Is that correct?
We do.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Maybe some of the games that your teams participate in. And I'd like to know kind of, for some other IT directors and executive directors out there and CIOs who are looking to start a program like that, what's it take to kick one of those programs off, and then kind of brag on your team? Let me know a little bit about how they're doing.
Yeah, I'd say to start an esports program, the simplest thing to do is just start. I think a lot of times they get kind of caught high center because they try to think of every scenario and every game and every aspect and how it's going to. Just start with a game, one program, find a teacher somewhere that already plays that game, which I'm sure you already have in your district, pay them a little stipend and let them be the coach. And once you get off the ground, the rest kind of comes together. So for us, we've had our team now, man, it's probably been about a decade now. I actually started our program when I was doing my dissertation research. I was doing about the cognitive effects of gameplay on school learning. So part of that stemmed into esports. And then when I was doing the esports and the gamification side of it, the kids were asking me about, can we play Tulsa Public? And I was like, well, I don't know why we can't play Tulsa Public. So I called up a few schools and they're like, I don't really have that. I was like, well, get a team. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So then we started the Oklahoma Esports League, got it up and running. Last year or so, I've kind of stepped back a little bit from that. I don't do as much day-to-day at all with that anymore. I turned it over to a couple guys that really, really enjoy it. But our team continues to grow. At one time, we did 3 years ago when we did tryouts, we had about 300 kids show up, wanted to be on the team.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
A little more than we thought. I thought maybe 20 or 30 would show up. I was like, uh-oh.
300? How do you even do that trial?
How many hearts
poorly.
do you have to break there?
Yeah, pretty poorly. I'm sure that it was not the best design plan at the world. But at the same time, we learned a lot from it. I think a lot of them now, the numbers a little bit different because we have tryouts kind of throughout the year, and they're always engaging with kids, and kids are coming through. And so we've started a new feeder program where middle school kids are going to start enrolling and get into the game. So we'll have them at the middle school level, and then they'll feed up into the varsity. We play all sorts of games, anywhere from Smash Brothers to League of Legends to Overwatch, Call of Duty. There's almost 15 games I think they have now. We don't field every team. We just don't have enough kids or coaches that can do it. And part of when I created the league, part of the requirements is you had to have a coach for that. We don't want student coaches because I don't want adults interacting with kids. That just seems weird. So we require an adult coach, and if you don't have a coach, you can't be in the team. So we have some games that don't make, but for the most part, we've done okay. We've won. I've got 2 or 3 trophies up there from what we've won, and we've got probably 7 or 8 at the arena. So we're pretty fortunate. We've had some good teams.
Have you had any kids kind of go to the next level?
We have. I think we've had 4 or 5 kids now get scholarships.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah, Rocket League, Overwatch. I think we had 1 Smash kid. Yeah, so they get scholarships to OU or Roger State, or most of the colleges have programs now. So it's pretty awesome.
I was trying to remember. There's a pretty big tournament in is it Columbia University over in Missouri? I think they have like a really big tournament, and that's. I remember talking with their CIO, and I'm old, so I don't know if I remembered the name of the university right, but they were putting on a huge tournament every year, and I think they put in just themselves like $100,000 just to turn that up, and that's not counting all of the sponsorships they were getting from Dell and of course Dell, HP, and Lenovo because they have their gaming lines. Alienware and Legion and that they were even sponsoring, and they still put in a ton of money. And they said, and I asked him, I'd say, how long does it take you to prepare for that tournament? And he's like, well, we take 1 week off right after the tournament, and then we just start preparing again from that point on until the tournament comes. So it's just crazy.
Wow.
So
yeah, we used to host the state playoffs at our UMAC, at our multi-purpose activity center. And it'd take 4 or 5 of my guys a couple of days of prep and a couple of days to tear down, and they would constantly ask me to not host anymore.
Please don't do this.
Yeah, please don't do that. But it was okay. When our first year, like I said, our investment initially was very minimal. We bought a couple switches, and kids played Smash. So
right.
I think we're out $500. But then it grew pretty quick. And then we started as a morning club where I do it in the morning just to get kids to come to school early. That way they're ready to go for class first hour.
Right.
So I kind of branched off from that. But we built a whole arena. put in 30 or 40 computers in there and screens and everything. So, I mean, once you start getting into the arenas, it adds up. You can put $100,000 pretty easy.
Pretty quick.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to shift gears, but this is adjacent. And I know you and I have talked about this before, but this is something I found fascinating. I heard that you're looking at starting up a drone league. Is that true?
It is. Oklahoma School Drone League. Started out as a soccer drone. So I wanted to start the soccer drones. But it turns out, unlike esports.
You're going to have to tell me, brother, what's a soccer drone?
Oh, okay. Sorry. So it's kids playing soccer with drones. You pick up a ball, you fly it over, and you drop it into a bucket to get a score.
Oh, okay.
So
Never heard of that.
cool.
I'm going to have to look that up.
Yeah, so there's variants to it. There's skills-based where you fly through objects. And then there's obviously racing. You've probably seen that on TV now.
Yep.
So they have some of those. So part of what we're trying to do is not just, again, we use esports, we use drones. That's just a tool to engage the kids.
Right.
We know engagement's what's going to drive the kids to success. And our only focus on this whole thing is getting a kid ready for college. He's either getting ready for a career or getting ready for college. So everything we do is college and career readiness. So when we look at these drone leagues, it's not necessarily who's going to win or bring home a trophy. That's neat. That's icing. What we're trying to do is how do we get these skills needed to run a drone? How do we get those skills installed in these kids so then they can then take those skills, transfer it to doing aerial mapping for a company or doing commercial shoots for a company or whatever else that they need to do. So aviation is a big push that we're doing in the district. We've got a really great, pretty robust aviation program.
Okay.
So the drones just kind of fit naturally in that group. So that's kind of where we're going down. The challenge that we faced is that unlike esports where you have kids that play all the time at home, flying a drone at home is completely different than flying a drone competitively. So you've got to have a program established because you've got to improve skill sets before you can start getting in there. They can't just start flying all over the place thinking they're going to compete. So it's there's a lot more investment on the ramp up. Costs are minimal. Costs are very, very inconsequential. The problem is going to be these kids that are kind of like Best Buy drone pilots. They go down and buy one at Best Buy and think they can fly a drone. It's not the case. You got to know about lift. You got to know about thrust. You got to know all those aviation terms that I don't know. You got to know all that stuff in order to really be a good pilot. So there's a lot of stuff we have to do to get these kids' skills up to the point where they can then compete.
So it's a little more to it than just fly, like at home, just flying the drone around your neighborhood.
Yeah, a little bit. I thought I was going, launch this. It'll be great. We'll be flying drones next week.
Uh-huh.
And then I forgot them in and nobody could fly one. I was like, uh-oh.
It's a little harder than I thought. Is doing any programs where you kind of even pass the drone league where you're getting them? I guess you got to get licensed. I don't know who is that through the FAA or.
Yeah, there's a section you have to get licensed to become a drone pilot. It depends on what you're doing, how heavy they are, if you have a payload, if you're flying over people's heads. So there's some variance there. But our next big thing that we're trying to do is drone shows. So our goal is to be ready, not this year, next football season. So like whenever they score a touchdown, we'll launch the drones for a touchdown.
Oh, man.
And then at graduation, we have fireworks that go off our UMAC on the other end of the end zone. We want the drones to go up and do a drone show to celebrate the graduates.
Man, that would be awesome. I remember I was at a conference in Vegas. You may actually been at that same conference, and they did a drone show, and where they would put like words up in the.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. Some of the things they can do with like these drone swarms.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty. Well, yeah. I mean, but it looks very cool. So
it is.
I couldn't imagine how much it would cost to fund something like that. But I don't know. Maybe you'll be able to figure that out and tell me one day. So
Working on that now.
Sounds cool. Go ahead, Cassie.
Well, that sounds very exciting. And I know it's good for the kids to get their hobbies, for their, they can use for their future. I never thought about like a camera setting, like movie setting. So that's amazing. The next thing I wanted to talk about, I need your clarification on this. Is it taste or tasks?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm like, which one? But the Tulsa Area Schools Technology Symposium coming up in June 4th through 5th. How long has that been going on? I know we've done it every year since I can remember, but how long has that been going?
I think this is our 13th time.
Okay, and did you start that?
I did.
Okay.
And we actually renamed it. It used to be called TARCS.
Okay.
Tulsa Area Schools Technology Consortium or something, Regional Consortium.
Oh, I like the new one.
Yeah. We did it 1 year with that, and everybody's like, why are you guys called NARCs? I was like, no, it's not NARCs. It's I was like, we didn't change it. So we changed it to taste or tasks or whatever. And I always get the question of, is it a food conference? No, it's not. I go, it's nothing to do with food, but we have a lot of food for you to eat there. So again, we've done it. We've been really blessed with vendors such as yourself. That we don't charge vendors and we don't charge participants. So it's a day of lots of technology, and it's free. And we feed you really well. You get breakfast, lunch, snacks, dinner, breakfast the next day. If you go away not gaining some pounds, I didn't do my job.
Well, we look forward to it in a few months. So what technology trends are you most excited about or skeptical about currently?
Well, I'd say AI, but I'm not even sure what that encompasses anymore because it seems like everything is AI now. Mm-hmm. They slap the words AI on toothbrushes and everything. So
those are the best toothbrushes, though, man.
Man, they are. You don't have to brush them anymore. It just tells you it's done.
They just do it.
So I think AI is the thing that I think offers the most promise to schools, but at the same time, the most skepticism. I have a lot of concerns about AI. At some point, poisoning the well is going to have to happen. How we're going to address that is going to be a concern. Bias from the responses is something we need to be able to address. So I think part of the responsibility as a school district is not to how do we hide this from kids, because I promise you they already know where it is and they're using it. But we need to figure out how do we provide instruction that can embrace AI and not try to see if they cheated with AI. But at the same time, we need to develop these skills within our students. We need to develop these skills on how do you create a prompt, how do you modify a prompt, how do you use AI to improve the educational process for them, and then how do you use it past that. AI is not just a way to cheat on your English paper. There's so much more that it can do for you, and a part of I think our responsibility as a school district is to figure out what level of AI we're going to embrace, and then really take that level and ingrain it into our kids to the point where they don't think about AI. It just becomes natural. Like, we don't tell them how to Google search. They just know what to do. We need to get AI to the point where they're not thinking about it. We don't have to explain or train or teach them how to do it. It just happens.
Right.
You brought up AI bias. Yeah, that actually kind of came up in our last episode, and there's all types of AI bias, really. But we talked a little bit about how it can kind of disrupt when you're using AI to do cybersecurity, right? And it starts looking at different patterns, different ways, and it kind of gets programmed to look at it a certain way. But the other AI bias, it could be, there's like bias towards people, right? And it's pretty interesting on how you deal with some of that. I was going to ask you on like generative AI, ChatGPT or Claude or whatever they end up using. I didn't know if you guys were, and I don't know if you can even comment on this, but if you guys were using using some of those tools to check and see if the students have used AI to to create their their term papers or whatever. Is that something you guys are embracing yet?
Well, we have a lot of our vendors will have a fact checker to see if it's AI enabled. My point to them is, if you're giving them an assignment that's AI capable of cheating, it's your fault. That our assessment needs to be at the point where not AI proof, but maybe AI engaged. So part of the process is, how do you encourage them to use AI to create prompts, to create an outline, to create, but then you write the paper itself. Or you have them fact check you, or you have them go through and say, grammatically look through this, is this correct? So you can use it in lots of means. How that looks, I think, is up to the teacher.
Sure.
And that's up to us to provide those skills to the teacher so they feel comfortable doing that and not kind of scared of this big, ambiguous AI model out there.
Sure. Yeah, I know that I've got a couple of daughters who are in college right now, one in computer science and one in chemistry. And both of them, most of their professors today allow for the use of, something like ChatGPT, but they have to cite it, and they have to cite it where it was used. So when and where it was used. And so I found that as an interesting thing. And I was talking to my daughter a little bit about this, and I think Stephen Tyser talked about it last time on our last show. Is there's probably probably a budding need for someone to train people on how to prompt, right? And how to use prompts the right way, so that, and that may even become, quite honestly, a skill set that could turn into this is something you do for a living, is prompt generation, so.
I would say it's going to become an interview question. When you're interviewing for jobs, not just technology jobs, any jobs, they're going to give you a scenario and they're going to ask you to create AI prompts to solve the scenario.
Sure.
For the simple fact that I do that on my job now.
Yeah.
If I'm going to use ChatGPT for my job, I think students should be able to use it for their job. I think it's on us to figure out how that works. But I think the most important thing is we need to reiterate the skill set of data verification. Just because AI tells you something, how do you know that's true? AI is not always correct, doesn't know everything. So part of that is our responsibility is to go and teach kids skill sets of, how do you verify the information that's provided? How do you find 3 sources that corroborate that type of information or substantiates the claim? Or in better case, how does it refute that claim? Right. So one of the things that we've done is we've used AI bad prompts. So we've told kids, here's a prompt, read the AI response, and find the 3 things in that prompt that's not accurate. There's 3 errors in there. What's not working?
Right.
Part of that then it teaches them of, here's how you write a correct prompt, and here's how this prompt gave it back. For instance, if you're using a source, like it's a lot of its data sets from old newspapers. Yeah. Well, if you talk about, if you're using old newspapers as sources and you're talking about school segregation, that response could look pretty different, because the responses in newspapers in the 50s isn't the same response in newspapers as of today. So it depends on where they're pulling that data from. Those responses can look different. So part of what we've talked about is, just because it's AI, where's their data sets? Where's that data sets coming from? We're talking about poisoning. That's going to become the next cybersecurity issue of these data sets getting poisoned with bad or incorrect or whatever information, and people seeing it in ChatGPT and thinking it's gospel and running with it.
It's I can't remember the term. Is it like AI hallucinations? Yeah, they call it that. And I wish I could remember. Someone will have to. One of you guys will have to fact check me on this, but I think on one of these hallucinations that an and this may just be urban legend, and this is how urban legends get spread, but I'm here for it. But I think there was a lawyer who had basically presented, their argument and cited cases that weren't real because they had used, some AI platform, and it had pulled up cases that were pulled out of either stories or movies, wherever they pulled the data from, and they cited these sources and they didn't even check it. I don't know if they were like on a time crunch for the, for the trial or whatever, but like it went all the way through. And I think that the person almost got disbarred for it. And I think the one thing that saved them is they said, hey, this is what I used for it. I took it at face value. I was wrong. And I think they ended up not getting in trouble. But yeah, I mean, that's just crazy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, AI hallucinates because it's dealing off of bad information. I don't know, kind of scary. So yeah, I think it's really, I like what you guys are doing. Or at least your concept of, hey, pick out what probably doesn't make sense. They're all three created by the AI, but which one doesn't make sense? I mean, I think people need to be cognizant of that, especially younger kids, right? Because they're growing up in such a digital age that, none of the three of us grew up with that. And so, finding sources of truth versus just data points that may or may not have backing.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges we have now is kids get their news now from social media.
Yeah.
So their news source is some guy that's sitting in a room somewhere. So they don't understand the difference between truth and some dude's opinion.
Right.
That just because you present it as a fact doesn't make it a fact. And I think part of that is going to be, how do we get them to learn of not necessarily question everything, but question everything.
Yeah.
If somebody tells you something, go and see the true source and see if that's accurate or not.
Even as an adults, we probably need to do the same with
I
AI.
think we do that every election cycle.
Yes.
Or we should be anyway.
Right.
Yes.
Should and do, two different things.
Yeah.
Yes. And there's a lot of opinions out there, so there could be a lot of confusion for these kids.
100%.
Well, I really appreciate the time, Todd. Todd, do you have anything else that you wanted to share? Any kind of fun stories from the old grindstone of K-12 that you might find fun or funny?
Oh, I would imagine all mine would either get me in trouble or have some student mad at me somewhere.
Lawsuits.
Yeah, every school I guarantee you has the same instances of, at the time, as the oh my gosh, the world's falling down. Then 2-3 years later, you're like, oh yeah, that happened. Like Secret Service coming on site, or the FBI coming on site. At the time, you're like, what is happening? And now you look back, you're like, oh, okay, that was really awkward times. But it's fun. It's every day is a new adventure. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Cassie, do you have anything?
Is there advice you would like to give someone starting out in education IT today?
Yeah, I would say read. Read a lot. Read books, read podcasts, or not read podcasts, watch podcasts. Never be comfortable. If you think you're the smartest person in the room, change rooms. That was obviously quoted somebody, I don't know who, ChatGPT could tell you. But just realize that you don't know all the answers, and that what your answer that you have in your mind may not be the best answer. And be humble enough to know that saying I'm wrong or I don't know is still a valid answer. I think one of my favorite things to say is I have no idea, but I'll find out. Because what I don't want to do is give bad information. So.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we'll see you at the taste.
Yes.
Yeah, in a few months.
Yep. I'll see you later.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to the NSI podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share the episode. Got questions or topics you want us to cover? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. For more information, visit us at nextstepinnovation.com.